Good evening and welcome to the 2018 Rhode Island Criminal Justice Hall of Fame Induction Ceremony. At this time, I would ask that you please stand as the Providence Police and Central Falls Police Honor Guards present the colors. At this moment, I'd like to please welcome Providence Police Officer Jennifer Bustamante, who will sing our national anthem.
Oh, sing, can you sing by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, all the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets ran glare, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I want to thank our honor guard and Officer Bustamante, who, it's my understanding, is relatively new on the police department, so she had no pressure here whatsoever with the colonel getting an award. Please remain standing as a dear friend of first responders in the judicial system, and indeed all of the flock in which he provides spiritual guidance to. Reverend Marciano provides our invocation. Father.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, who gave us this great nation and fashioned it between the seas, we bow our heads this night in gratitude to you, the source of all goodness and virtue, to honor these servants of yours who have given of themselves without measure for the safety of others. Our cities and our state is kept safe because of them and their courageous and dedicated lives. As we salute them tonight and surround them with our love and our prayers, we do so asking your blessing upon them and on their families who sacrifice so much for us. And most especially, Lord, when earthly duties end, bring them home safely to you. For we are always proud to be one nation under you, our God, forever and ever.
Amen. Thank you, Father. Please be seated. Not just Father, all of you. At this moment, though, I will ask, just in a remembrance, a dear friend, coincidentally, of Central Falls Police, a dear friend of mine personally, and of his children, retired Lieutenant Ray Sullivan of the Central Falls Police Department, passed away on the 9th of June. And if anyone knew Ray, he was a man of true empathy, compassion, true professional. All of his, I'm sure his wife Constance obviously is grieving at this moment for such a wonderful person, as are his wonderful children, I think all of whom I know, Kevin, Stephen, Keith, Scott, and Kristen. Just keep that family and Ray in your mind tonight as we honor Central Falls and indeed all law enforcement, both past, present, and future. Again, welcome to the Criminal Justice Hall of Fame. This is actually our 7th ceremony. Hard to believe how fast time flies. But as you can see by gray hair and a few pounds, it does happen. But we are here to honor the outstanding professionals who work to improve and uphold the principles of the entire criminal justice system within the state of Rhode Island, which really makes it what works. It's the people behind it, collectively and individually, regardless of where you are, be it the judiciary, academia, law enforcement, wherever it is, those contributions make the system work. So we're here to honor those personal and professional achievements, as we have, I said, for the past 6 years. So at this moment, I'm going to ask our past inductees who are present to stand as I call your name, and I ask everyone to please hold the applause to the end. So the past inductees present: Providence Public Safety Commissioner Stephen Parry, retired State Police Major Michael Urso, Warwick Police Chief Stephen McCartney, retired State Police Colonel Brendan Doherty, Superior Court Presiding Justice Alice Gibney, U.S. Marshal Jamie Hainsworth, Middletown Police Chief Anthony Passari, Johnston Police Chief Richard Tamburini, and the Presiding Justice of the Superior Court, the Honorable Joseph Rogers. Would you give them all a round of applause, please? And if you haven't already, take the time to look at the boards. It's something new we did this year. We have photographs and names of inductees year by year. And some of whom have, as recently as a month or so ago, Rep. Ziggy Friedemann, who created the 911 system, passed away. So take a look at the board and really reflect on what a wonderful system we have and what wonderful people who have been inducted. Also, I would be remiss if and this is the dangerous part, so apologies to whomever I miss, because we are in a hall this evening of wonderful people who deserve recognition, but there are some dignitaries here that I would be remiss not to acknowledge, and if I miss someone, I apologize. Hopefully somebody will give me a hint later. But Chief of the Rhode Island Supreme Court, the Honorable Paul Sotell, Presiding Justice of the Rhode Island Superior Court, the Honorable Alice Gibney, Chief Judge of the District Court, the Honorable Jean LaFazia, Rhode Island Traffic Tribunal Magistrate Dominic DeSandro, retired Family Court Judge and my old Family Court Law Professor, Judge Howard Lipsey, Providence Mayor Jorge Alorza, Central Falls Mayor James Diosa, Warwick Mayor Joe Solomon, United States Attorney Stephen Dambrook, Superior Court Justice retired Edward Clifton, Superior Court Justice Kristen Rogers, Superior Court Justice Maureen Keogh, Superior Court Magistrate Patricia Howard, and of course, escorting Magistrate Howard, a long time and dear friend, former Speaker of the House, John Howard. Could we have a round of applause for all of our dignitaries? It's interesting. I was coming here and I was thinking to myself, boy, this is one of my most favorite parts of the job. But then it dawned on me that I say that almost every day. This is one of the most favorite parts of my job. And one of the reasons that I think I have that attitude, though, it's really about the folks we are honoring tonight and the folks we have honored in the past, because I think they are the inspiration for all of us. As we work through our jobs and the difficulties we face, the victims that we console, the hardships that we have to endure, both dealing with the cases that we have, or the incidents that we have, or the individuals that we have, plus this love and the support of the families that we sometimes miss out because of the jobs we do. But it's really the folks who are being honored tonight. It's not just them being honored, but it's their inspiration. It's their inspiration to all of us in this room and beyond this room, and what they bring to the state for folks that we can look up to and say, I want to strive to do better because they make me want to strive to do better, because they strive to do better. And that's really what tonight is all about. It's really about the professionalism, the dedication to service, and the really caring about our fellow neighbors and Rhode Islanders. And that's a wonderful legacy for anyone to pass on. The Hall of Fame board, though, with all of that, gets many submissions, and they go through it, and I do not envy them their position. I'm here tonight just speaking on their behalf, but they do the nitty-gritty of it. They go through the submissions, they make the difficult choices and do the votes anonymously to see who we will end up inducting. And they deserve some recognition tonight for their volunteering their time to help recognize their friends, colleagues, and their inspirations in the justice system. So I will ask all of those board members to stand as I call your name, and please give them a round of applause after they all stand. First and foremost, a longtime dear friend, Hall of Famer in his own right, the Honorable John Capel, retired judge of the Rhode Island District Court. Anthony Capezza from the International Brotherhood of Police Officers. Ernie Carlucci, the Chief of Staff for the Department of Attorney General. Michael Clancy, Sergeant at Arms for the FOP. Community activist Carlos Diaz, Rhode Island Public Defender Mary McElroy. Steph Manzi from the School of Justice at Roger Williams. David Smith, Director of the Graduate Program at Salve, and also part of the Justice and Homeland Security Department, and the Honorable Jerome Smith, the former clerk of the District Court. Can we thank them and give them a round of applause? Keep clapping, because I turned the page. James Mondanica from the Central Falls Police, representing the Chiefs of Police, and my dear friend, I apologize, I think I owe you a beer, Colonel Brendan Doherty from the Rhode Island State Police. So now, the important part of the night, the reason we are all here, is for the induction ceremony. And to make our first induction into the Criminal Justice Hall of Fame, it does give me great pleasure to introduce to you someone I consider a dear, good, and longtime friend, a former inductee in 2016, Colonel Brendan Doherty, to induct Rhode Island State Police Major Lionel Pete Benjamin. Colonel?
Thank you, General. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. It's so nice, it's an honor to be here today to present for Major Benjamin. So many of his old friends are here today, just to name a few, Arthur Kaufman and Judge Lipsy and the world-renowned Amon Lamontagne, Major Mike Urso and Marty Capelli. It's all good to see so many of his friends here tonight. Major Lionel Pete Benjamin graduated from the Rhode Island State Police Academy on June 29, 1958. As a member of the Uniform Bureau, he was assigned to the Wickford Barracks, the Scituate Barracks, Patchett, Lincoln Woods, Portsmouth, and Howard Barracks. He was appointed to the Detective Bureau in 1965. Later, as captain, he was the officer in charge of detectives, and he was also assigned to the Fire Marshal's office. He graduated from the prestigious National FBI Academy in 1972, and prior to joining the State Police, Major Benjamin was a proud member of the United States Marine Corps. Major Benjamin was promoted through the ranks of the State Police, eventually to the rank of Major. As Major, he served as the executive officer to Colonel Walter E. Stone from 1974 to 1990, the date of his retirement. At that time, the executive officer, the major, was the second in command of the Rhode Island State Police, and Major Benjamin was the longest-serving second in command in the history of the state police. And mind you, it was for Colonel Stone. That was a tough job. I love Colonel Stone, but that was a tough job, trust me. Major Benjamin received numerous commendations during his career. He also received numerous letters of appreciation from government officials and private business entities, executives. He was actively involved in an investigation with the Bonded Vault Storage Company, a case you may recall Tim White recently wrote a book about. The Bonded Vault robbery in 1975, when with an estimated $3 million was taken. Based on information developed by Major Benjamin, a key suspect was indicted by a Providence County grand jury. While working in concert with the Providence police detectives, that subject was apprehended and several other organized crime figures were arrested as well. The arrest resulted in numerous convictions for members of that robbery crew. In 1986, Major Benjamin received information from a subject serving a considerable prison sentence who conveyed information to the major with the details regarding the 1977 murder of mobster Richard Dickey Kelly. A subsequent lengthy investigation ensued of this cold case by Providence Police and State Police and eventually led to the arrest and conviction of numerous individuals. Kelly's body was found in a shallow grave in Rehoboth, Massachusetts, shortly after the murder. And as you probably may recall, Frank Bobo Maripisi was convicted as the shooter in that case. During his time as a young detective, Major Benjamin developed a keen ability to cultivate information from career criminals in an attempt to penetrate organized crime. At that time, organized criminal groups were wreaking havoc in New England. Some of the information gleaned by Major Benjamin would not be attributed to him to check the origin of the information. Major Benjamin was known by law enforcement, including the FBI, prosecutors, and members of the judiciary, to not only provide quality information on criminal activity, but information that could be proven accurate and credible. Major Benjamin cultivated information for decades that led to the arrest of numerous members of associates of organized crime. The Major passed in 2008. He was predeceased by his lovely wife, Eleanor. He was the proud father of Mark and Gregory Benjamin. Greg was a football star at URI. He actually played football with Lieutenant Colonel Joe Philbin from the State Police. Major Benjamin loved those games. They were his pride and joy, Greg and Mark. Mark, as you may know, has been a prosecutor for the last 17 years with the Office of the Attorney General. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Mark Benjamin.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, please. All yours. Thank you, Colonel Doherty, for those wonderful words about my father and for nominating him to the Criminal Justice Hall of Fame. Congratulations to the rest of the inductees and their families. My father would have been proud and honored to be in all of your company. On behalf of my father, I would like to thank General Kilmartin for having the vision 6 years ago to create the Criminal Justice Hall of Fame, a place where we can recognize and celebrate those who contributed so much to the field of criminal justice. Thank you to the board members for inducting my father here this evening, with a special thanks to Ernie Carlucci. This is clearly a very proud moment for my family. And thank you to Amy Kemp, Monica Nason, and Terry Letourneau for all the hard work they put in to planning, organizing, and promoting this special event tonight. Growing up having a father who was a state trooper was an amazing privilege and experience for both my brother and I. We got to see and be a part of things that most people would only read about. As young boys, watching our father go off to work wearing that legendary state trooper uniform was something that would make any son proud, and we certainly were. But it wasn't really about the uniform, it was about the man behind it. My father dedicated 32 selfless years of his life to an organization Rhode Islanders could be proud of. He firmly believed in the values of loyalty, honesty, and integrity. Under Colonel Stone, he ran the department as a paramilitary organization, focusing on structure and discipline. The state police to him was like a family, and he fought to maintain its image and reputation, as well as its mission. For my father, it never was about the power. It was never about the fame or the fortune. It was always about serving the public. It was about fighting crime and helping those who were victimized by it. My father spent many of the years in the state police focusing on organized crime. And as Colonel Doherty had indicated, the mafia was in its heyday, and there was no shortage of business. He investigated and apprehended some of Rhode Island's most violent and vicious criminals, and solved some of its biggest cases. He was both feared and respected by those that he pursued. Yet, ironically, beneath this hard exterior was a man who was kind, caring, and compassionate. He loved his family, and he was a great role model, father, and friend. As most of you may know, my father was never much for the spotlight. He didn't like the attention, and he was never really a big fan of the press. He was a true public servant who did what he did, not for a headline, but because he cared. He literally would do anything for anyone. And if you ever had a problem or needed some help with something, he was the person you could go to. Unfortunately, like so many others, he was taken from us too early. But tonight, you have brought him back to us by allowing his memory and spirit to live on through this award. On behalf of my brother, my family, I thank you for that and for recognizing him here tonight. Thanks, Brian. Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
I never had the honor of knowing Mark's father, but I can tell you, based on his reputation, his decency, his honesty, and all the things that Colonel Doherty and others have told me about him, the apple did not fall far from the tree. Mark is a true professional in the job, and we appreciate everything he does day in and day out for the justice system and on behalf of the Attorney General's office. You'll note that we gave him the actual award, but with that there are some citations and awards from not just me and my office, but from the governor, the treasurer, Senator Reed, Senator Whitehouse, Congressman Langevin, Congressman Cicilline, Mayor Alorza, Mayor Diosa, the Providence City, and the Providence City Council, all who want to recognize the wonderful reputations and deeds that these individuals have done over the course of the past their lifetime, actually. Next up is also a former Hall of Famer, or a current Hall of Famer, inducted in 2014, former Colonel of the State Police, now Commissioner of Providence, Stephen Perry.
Thank you, General. I have the honor also to stand before you and introduce the next inductee, someone that I met years ago and for the past 7.5 years worked closely with, Hugh T. Clements, Jr. Hugh is a person that you ask anyone in Rhode Island, around this country, from the community to law enforcement, you'll always get the same response. A person that's humble, person of utmost integrity, person that's compassionate about what he does. And it's a privilege for me to serve with him, and particularly in the last 6 years as our chief in the Providence Police Department. The mayor thinks so fondly of him, he squeezed into his schedule for him to come here to honor you, and I've seen the council and so many others honoring all the inductees, but particularly Hugh Clements. We talk a little bit about, because I did pull his service jacket, I'm the only one in the department that can, and so I went through it, and there's so many cases in which I can recite that he's been involved in the past 33 years. But I want to talk to you a little bit about his personal side. because he's a person that is a strong family man, a person that loves his 2 daughters and his wife. And if you want to get him engaged in a conversation, talk about his Greek heritage from his mom that he continuously is proud of and goes to the Greek festival every single year. Hugh was born in Providence, went through the Coventry system of education, lettered in all 3 sports, was a captain of his baseball team in his senior year, and a person that brings so much to the community and of Providence and to this profession. I'm happy to see that this committee and this board recognizes a person that we adore in this profession and think the world of. If it weren't for, his loving family, surrounded by women, his 2 girls and his wife, and surrounded with his favorite pet, London, who is the only male in his family, a whopping 11-pound dog. Hugh is someone that I admire every single day for what he's done for the Providence Police, and bringing us to national accreditation, deploying body cams throughout the department without a fight. And I see some of the past president of the FOP who worked closely with the colonel and the command staff. That is unprecedented with a department this large and getting us to where we are. And it doesn't happen by accident. It's because we have a leader in charge of the police department, Hugh T. Clements, Jr. Let me introduce to you our next inductee, Colonel Hugh T. Clements, Jr., Providence Police.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for those fine words. I want to thank all the members of the Providence Police Department up front who've attended here, because without you, I would not be attaining this award. So up front, I want to thank the members of the Providence Police Department. I want to thank the Attorney General for, as Mark Benjamin said, having the vision in 2012 to start these awards for the very important work that we do in the criminal justice arena. Not just law enforcement, but all of our partners in the community as well. I want to thank my fellow recipients tonight, and some that I have worked very, very closely with. Years ago in the Providence Police, an iconic detective, Steve Springer, who I thought the world of and emulated when I was a young detective. And then as the years went on, Dr. Sue Earthling and Professor Dean Bobby Mckenna. We've done some fine work in the community we should all be proud of. So there's my fellow Hall of Fame class recipients that I have to recognize. As well, I have to thank the mayor of this great city of Providence for supporting me in everything we do in the police department. We're doing some tremendous things in this great city in policing. Very innovative, very creative, and none of that would not happen without the support from the mayor of the city of Providence and the commissioner of public safety, Steve Parry. So I thank them as well. So in 1985, I started my journey to join the greatest profession there is in the world, without question. And we know it. We know it every single day that we strap the uniform on or the badge on. It is without question the greatest job you could have. And I say that, and I mean that passionately, because from day one, I felt that way, and I still feel the same way as I've ascended through the ranks. We have the incredible ability to have an impact in our community on a single individual, a young boy or girl, a young man, a young woman, a family, a housing development, or sometimes the entire city with an act that we perform. And I say all the time, you know, at roll calls, it truly is about acting on every single call, professional, respectful, and be accountable for everything that you do on every single call. So my inspiration back in 1985 for joining the greatest profession in the world was my family, my mother, my father, my brother and sister, and that has carried on. But as well, it was my school teachers and my coaches. My coaches in sports really were inspirational to me in the character that I've tried to embody as my career has gone on, and that is to try to be your best and do your best at every moment, because everything reflects on what you do when it has your name attached to it. And that's important, and that's what we try to do every single day in the police department. So this award, although it's been given to me, it is a proud moment, and I do accept it with the greatest amount of humility. It's because over the years, I've surrounded myself with some of the best and the brightest. So before I made deputy chief 7 years ago, half my career, 26 years, about half was spent in the uniform division patrol side, and the other half was spent on the investigative side, coming up through detectives, narcotics, and then as I made rank, I bounced back and forth between the two divisions. And during those years, I came to work with some of the greatest cops, some of the greatest police officers you'll find in this country. And we worked some amazing cases. I learned so much from them. They made me better. There's too many in this room to announce, but I'm proud to call them my friends. I'm proud to call them my comrades in the work, the amazing work we've done over the years. And in the early years, we policed far differently in the Providence Police. It was a traditional model. There was a professional model of policing. It was crime fighting, and there was nobody better at crime fighting than the Providence Police. I mean, there were some tough times, and this is still a tough job. But I think the true mark of a champion is to embrace change and embrace the future. And I'm proud of what we've done in the Providence Police because we've embraced that change, and we've changed for the better. And I have to recognize the present transformational team of the Providence Police Department, going back a few years to Deputy Chief Paul Kennedy, my Deputy Chief Tommy Oates, my present Deputy Chief Tom Verdi, the present majors in the police department, LePayton, Perez, and Lepre, and all the captains and lieutenants are here, too many to mention, and the patrol officers. They're the ones out there every single day doing it. We do some amazing work out there, and but for the work they do, I wouldn't be standing here right now. As well, along my journey, I work with some great prosecutors, some really great attorneys, some that have left the profession, but some that are still here, including Mark Benjamin, who when I made district lieutenant was my district attorney, and we had some laughs. So Mark, congratulations to you and your family and your dad. So I work with some great prosecutors, some great public defenders, some great community leaders, service providers, Susan Earthling, and all the other community partners that we work with. But as well, what has been very important to me in my journey has been certainly the rank and file, but the Fraternal Order of Police. And, you know, I remember as a young patrolman, I really looked up to the good cops, the guys out there that were trying to make a difference in the community, but as well make a difference on the job for the men and women out there who do an incredibly difficult job under difficult circumstances. And they always had the greatest interest of those people in their minds. And I became friendly with, after I ran for vice president of the FOP, very friendly with Mike Macaccio and Ziggy Quinn, and I thank them for their friendship, and all the FOP members around the state that we became friendly with, and we went on to do some great things and made some impactful changes in the workforce, not only in Providence, statewide, and nationally. You think about it, we made our mark nationally. 2 times the national FOP had the conference in Providence, Rhode Island. That's unheard of for a small city. 1977 and then 2003. So, as well, work that we do every single day with our community leaders, the Providence City Council, along with the mayor. I see them there in support of me every single day. On the weekends, at nighttime, I may receive a call from one of those council people. And you know what? I built my reputation on being accessible, and they know that. So if they call me on a Friday night or a Saturday afternoon in the dead of the summer, if I don't pick up, I call them right back, because it's important. It's important in the work we do in the community we've gone from a crime-fighting machine to a community-oriented machine, and what we do now is try to improve the quality of life in every single neighborhood in this city. So I want to thank all my friends who've attended tonight, all the members of the Providence Police Department, the fellow police chiefs. I think we have one of the greatest compilation of police chiefs at a certain moment in time in the state of Rhode Island. There's some great harmony, there's some great guys. You should be proud of the leadership in the state of Rhode Island. And most importantly, I want to thank my family for their support, my beautiful family, my wife, my daughters, for their support they give me every single day. My youngest daughter couldn't be here today. She's doing her internship in DC. And I want to thank my sister for everything she's done for me over the years. So thank you. It's a proud moment for me and my family, and I humbly accept this. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. On behalf of Stacy Veroni, Chief of our Criminal Division, I want to thank you and all of the Providence Police Department. You are the largest city in the state, so it goes without question that the workload of that division, the majority of it comes out of Providence, so we thank you for your cooperation, your professionalism, and your camaraderie, working together to help ensure that the victims of crimes have representation in the justice system, which leads to our next award. And I am going to call up Stephanie Manzi, who over the course of the past 8 years has become a wonderful friend of mine personally, but she's a longtime friend to the justice system, for our next introduction. Steph Manzi.
Good evening, everyone. It is my honor to introduce our next inductee, Dr. Susan Earthling. Where are you? For those of you who've not had the opportunity to work with Susan, let me tell you a little bit about her commitment to our field. In the earlier part of her career in victim advocacy, Susan held the appointment of a clinical assistant professor of psychiatry at the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine, and she served on the board of several nonprofits in the city as well. Most of here tonight know Susan, though, through her role as the vice president of as the senior vice president at Family Services of Rhode Island, from which she recently retired. Through her work with Family Services, Susan can be credited with elevating the status of victims in Rhode Island, as well as developing continuing education for victim service providers. Susan is a nationally recognized leader in the field of victim support services and trauma work, She was the principal investigator of the U.S. Department of Justice Safe Start Grant, which provided services as well as outcome evaluations for children exposed to violence, and as the principal investigator of the National Child Traumatic Stress Network Grant, where she led a team providing evidence-based services to children and families who have experienced abuse and neglect. Susan founded the groundbreaking partnership with the Providence Police, Rhode Island State Police, and East Providence Police Departments, providing ride-along and 24/7 emergency response in collaboration with police officers to victims of crime. She also created a parallel program with the Department of Elderly Affairs that provided around-the-clock statewide response to elderly victims of abuse. These programs led to additional partnerships with the Rhode Island Attorney General's Office, the United States Attorney's Office, Hasbro Children's Hospital, and the Rhode Island Department of Corrections. Further, through a grant from the U.S. Department of Justice, she established the Rhode Island State Victim Assistance Academy in partnership with those of us at Roger Williams University, the School of Justice Studies, and the academy is now in its 10th year. And as a follow-up to that, we also offer follow-up education for victim service providers who have gone through that initial training. She has also been involved in federal grants that have helped improve the system for children who are awaiting adoption. Under her leadership, Susan's department has received several awards, including the prestigious MetLife Foundation Award for Community Safety Initiatives and the Justice Award from the Rhode Island Attorney General's Office. I know she's recently retired from family services, but Susan also dedicates her time as the chair of the board of Lucy's Hearth, which is a shelter for families and children, and she serves as an adjunct faculty member in the School of Social Work at Rhode Island College. So Susan, it's with great honor that we give you this award tonight.
Well, good evening, everyone, friends and family. Thank you, Dr. Stephanie Manzi, for that introduction, very thorough, and to the Rhode Island Criminal Justice Hall of Fame for recognizing me and the victims of crime in this important way. It's a great honor to receive a personal phone call from the Attorney General one day. You have no idea when you get a message that when will you be available? The Attorney General would like to talk to you. It sends a little shiver down your spine, but it worked out fine, and thank you so much. In 2004, Margaret Holland Mcduff, the CEO of Family Service of Rhode Island, hired me to develop a partnership with the Providence Police, which would provide joint response to children who had been exposed to violence, homicides, of their parents, of their siblings, domestic violence, sexual assault, and more. And that was the beginning of a long and powerful relationship. Early on, when we were still discussing whether the Providence Police actually wanted to do this, as you might guess, the idea of calling or beeping a social worker to a hot crime scene, or worse, having one ride around in a patrol car with you, was not an immediate sell to most of the officers. We were finishing a meeting one time, and one of the lieutenants at the table said to me, "Come on, I'll take you for your first ride-along in my district," which was Olneyville. We stopped at St. Teresa's Church, where in the basement was a food pantry, a clothing donation center, and a couple of volunteers who knew this lieutenant well. And he knew that they needed resources. We spent some time talking there about the community, and it was clear that this officer was well-known and respected by this neighborhood. I thought, hey, this idea might actually work. Probably some of you might have guessed, maybe the police officers and Associated Providence Police in the room, that this was then Lieutenant Hugh Clements, who took me for my first ride-along. and who over time moved up in the ranks of the department to now his position, and has provided ongoing and continued support for this work with victims. I'm proud to say that, as Stephanie mentioned, this initiative grew into multiple partnerships under the support of my organization, Family Service of Rhode Island. We worked with the Department of Corrections, received many federal grants in trauma work, who all saw the value in responding to victims of crime and their families. And we're willing to take a chance working as true partners, not just for children, but for the elderly, for victims of human trafficking, and sometimes for first responders ourselves who needed assistance in some of these situations. Some of these team members and officers have moved on, some have remained. Some are here tonight. I'm very happy to say Carla and Sarah can't be here, but Kayla and Erin, who carry on. And the important thing to me is that the partnerships have continued. So as people change and move on, we've managed to create a system, I think, where this is really highly integrated into the work of the criminal justice system for the state of Rhode Island. We established another outstanding relationship with Dean Manzi and Dean Bob Mckenna, another one of our honorees tonight, and Denise Owens from Roger Williams University, where we developed the Rhode Island State Victim Assistance Academy under a Department of Justice grant. We've, followed all the guidelines and still use that model that the Department of Justice recommends. Training hundreds of victim services workers and first responders. This is where I got to know Attorney General Kilmartin well. He became a regular teacher at our academy, and his victim services staff, and they stay an important part of that academy. Something has stuck with me all these years about what is good about what we do. I always remember the time an officer who's now moved on had me join him in a meeting with a mother whose daughter was a victim of a terrible domestic homicide, brutal, and who had 2 grandchildren who were going to come and live with her. And during his interview, I was there for a kind of compassionate presence, and she turned to me at one point and said, "What do I do now?" I'll never forget that moment. She literally was lost. She lost her daughter, her grandchildren's mother, and I thought, that's where our work begins, and that work continues. Thank you to all the people who continue on in this work. Finally, I might get a little teary, I never want to forget all my coworkers at Family Service and in the police department. I made such great friends. Hi, Tom. And my family, who make me so happy so I can go out and help others. Thank you again for this great honor, and I really appreciate it.
I don't know, Susan, you might be a tough act to follow. But thank you for such important work in a field that really doesn't get the recognition it deserves. Guiding people through the worst moments of their life and hoping to find them some sort of support, some sort of light at the end of the tunnel, help through a system, and being there for them. And thank you for training the folks in my office and all of the victim advocates throughout this state. That work is really almost worthy of sainthood, because it's not easy, it's difficult, and the compassion and the empathy that one must possess to do that is truly remarkable. So thank you for all your dedication to that. Next up, I would like to introduce to you a 2017 Hall of Famer for our next introduction, and that is Middletown Police Chief Anthony Pizzari. Chief.
Thank you, General. Congratulations, first of all, to all of tonight's inductees and their families, it is indeed my great pleasure and honor to introduce our next inductee, Director Bob Mckenna. Director Mckenna completed over 20 years of service with the East Providence Police Department, retiring with the rank of lieutenant. And at the time of his retirement, he was supervising the Planning and Training Unit. His experience in law enforcement includes service as a civilian dispatcher, a patrol officer, detective sergeant, and as a lieutenant with 4 different duty assignments. As a major crimes unit detective, he conducted capital offense investigations, including murder, robbery, sexual assault, burglary, and arson. He has testified in the Rhode Island Superior Court as an expert witness in the field of fire cause and origin, and served as the lead investigator in the state of Rhode Island for an international stolen car ring, which was prosecuted against 6 defendants in the Federal District of Vermont, as well as against 10 defendants named in a 125-count indictment in the state of Rhode Island. During his tenure with the East Providence Police Department, Director Mckenna graduated from the New England School of Law and used his degree to serve his department by acting as a city solicitor and prosecuted a number of cases to trial in the State District Court and the City of East Providence Municipal Court. In addition to his police responsibilities, Director Mckenna served the law enforcement community by becoming an active instructor. He has had an affiliation and instructional experiences with the Rhode Island Municipal Police Academy, the Rhode Island State Fire Marshal Academy, the Fire Science Program at the Community College of Rhode Island, and the Sociology Department at Salve Regina University. Director Mckenna was a founding member and past president of the Rhode Island Law Enforcement Trainers Association and has lectured at local, state, and regional seminars on law enforcement issues. Director Mckenna continues to serve the law enforcement community, serving since 2012 as a commissioner of the Rhode Island Police Accreditation Commission. Upon his retirement from the East Providence Police Department, Director Mckenna joined Roger Williams University as director of the Justice System Training and Research Institute. He also has served the university as an assistant and associate dean of the School of Justice Studies, assistant professor of criminal justice, and interim dean of the Schools of Justice Study and Education. Under the direction of Director Mckenna and his staff, the Institute has delivered seminars, workshops, and courses, as well as hosted programs for and with partnered agencies. A total of 20,437 people have been in attendance for those events during that time period. As well as providing crucial in-service training in the areas of field training officer programs, interview and interrogations, and crisis intervention, he and his staff have developed a professional development path for officers throughout New England. The Institute's first-line supervisor, mid-level management, and executive development leadership seminars provide leadership development that most law enforcement agencies would not be able to provide their officers in the absence of Roger Williams University's program. Under his direction, the Institute has forged ongoing relationships with the Rhode Island Police Chiefs Association, the New England Association of Police Chiefs, and several international law enforcement agencies. In 2003, the New England Association of Chiefs of Police partnered with the Institute to provide leadership development training to officers throughout New England. This is the result of the New England Association of Chiefs of Police approaching Director Mckenna and asking that the Institute take over the former New England Institute for Law Enforcement Management, originally hosted by Babson College. All of these relationships, which serve the law enforcement community, are the direct result of the efforts of Director Mckenna. Under the auspices of the Institute, the director, with the assistance of the staff and faculty at the School of Justice Studies, continue to prepare and administer promotional exams throughout the state of Rhode Island. The Institute has also engaged in research which has benefited the law enforcement community, and this marriage between the practitioner and academia has been fostered by the efforts of Director Mckenna. Example of the Institute's staff's community engagement includes service with the Rhode Island Police Accreditation Commission, the Rhode Island Department of Elderly Affairs, the Citizens Commission for the Safety and Care of the Elderly, and the Rhode Island Crime Victim Service Providers Steering Committee. Director Mckenna holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Criminal Justice and a Master of Science degree in the Administration of Justice from Salve Regina University. as well as a Juris Doctor degree from the New England School of Law. But most importantly, any examination of Director McKenna's professional and personal life reveal an individual who has devoted himself to the public good. He is a shining example of an individual who has improved and upheld the principles of the criminal justice system, all accomplished with the quiet grace and humility. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce Director Bob Mckenna.
Attorney General Kilmartin, committee members of the Rhode Island Criminal Justice Hall of Fame Committee, fellow inductees, colleagues, family, friends. To the committee, thank you very much for this honor. I'm truly humbled to join such a distinguished group who have been recognized over the years for their contributions to the criminal justice system. When Attorney General Kilmartin called to inform me that I had been elected into the Hall of Fame, it caused me to reflect about having been a part of the Rhode Island criminal justice system for over 40 years. I realized that throughout all that time, there were people along the way who shaped my life and certainly influenced how I tried to approach my career. Be kind to others and always help. My high school guidance counselor who worked magic to get me admitted to college, my undergraduate academic advisor who mentored me to become a lifelong learner, and my police detective colleague who encouraged me to enroll in law school. Each of them saw something in me that I did not see in myself, and for that I am thankful. During my policing career, I had the good fortune of working with people, too many to mention individually, within the policing community and throughout the wider criminal justice community, who took the time to share their experiences and wisdom. It was through their contributions that I was able to mature intellectually and begin to think critically about how I might contribute to improving the profession. Transitioning from the world of policing to that of academe was not without its challenges, but I had the benefit of working with deans, faculty, and staff who were mentors and thoughtful colleagues. We shared the belief that collaborative academic endeavors and professional practice in the criminal justice system were vital to building safer communities and improving the quality of life for their residents. During my 19 years at Roger Williams University, I have had the benefit of collaborating with so many dedicated people throughout diverse components of the criminal justice system in Rhode Island and beyond. And you've heard Huey and Susan speak about collectively what we can do. Together we worked to enhance the criminal justice system for the betterment of the community. My academic and professional careers were built upon a foundation established by my loving parents, who instilled in me the values of faith, compassion, and selfless service to others. For that, I am forever grateful. One person, however, throughout my entire adult life, has been my constant, my wife, Donna. She continues to be the love of my life, my best friend, my major cheerleader, and my greatest supporter. Thank you. Whatever professional success I may have achieved, whatever professional success I may have achieved is because so many people, family and colleagues, and many of you folks in this room have believed in me and guided me along the way. To all of you, thank you.
Thank you, Director. And I think the Colonel hit it on the head when it comes to Bob Mckenna. Such a knowledgeable guy. He is the go-to guy when you have a question. And I thank him for the support you've given me personally over the past 7 years when I've had some questions on some guidance on some issues. And I appreciate that sage guidance. And I appreciate the fact that you are here for everyone in the justice system. And like the Colonel said, you're just low-key and you get the job done. So thank you for that. Next up for the next introduction is someone else who gets the job done. Someone who I have had the extreme pleasure of working with for the past 7.5 years, and many years prior to that in the General Assembly. No question in my mind, a future Hall of Famer himself, someone known to all of you. For our next introduction, Jerry Coyne.
Thank you, General. It is really one of the honors of my career to stand before you this evening and introduce to you our next Hall of Fame nominee, a man whose career includes 35 years in the Providence Police Department and 14 years in the Office of Attorney General. When the idea of a Criminal Justice Hall of Fame was first initiated, it was only natural that many of the early nominees, and nominees even this evening, came from law enforcement agencies and had ultimately risen to head that agency. The nominees, each deserving in their own right, were judges, department heads, directors, chiefs, colonels. But if one of the purposes of this Hall of Fame is to showcase to those entering the criminal justice system, those who've gone before, then this evening's nominee took a different path to tonight's honor by earning the epitome of the phrase, a cop's cop. A 1968 graduate of the Providence Police Academy, Steve Springer served in the Patrol Bureau for approximately 5 years before being promoted to the rank of detective. And for the next 30 years, he served as a detective almost exclusively in the South Providence area. During that time, he investigated as either the primary or secondary investigator more than 200 homicides, a number probably unmatched in Rhode Island law enforcement history and which will probably go unmatched. During that time, he received numerous awards, including the Attorney General's Law Enforcement Award in 1978, a slew of awards in 1984 that had something to do with a video shoot, the Ray Archambault Award, the Medal of Valor, and the Mayor's Award. He received the Commissioner's Award in 1993. In 2001, he was the Rhode Island Justice Assistant's Neil Houston Award winner, and in 2002, the FOP Outstanding Police Officer of the Year Award. But in Detective Springer's case, these awards only scratched the surface of what was a remarkable career. He did not seek promotions which would have taken him away from the investigative work that he so excelled at. He treated all he encountered with respect, and in turn, he earned the respect of those who he served. An officer of total integrity, Steve served as a role model not only for generations of police officers, but for numerous prosecutors who had the opportunity to work with and to learn from him early in their career. For nearly 14 years following his retirement from the police department, Detective Springer served as an investigator in our office. And as with his career in Providence, it is again impossible to fairly identify all of those cases for which Detective Springer deserves tonight's honor. His work ethic was legendary in the office right up until his final day. Steve could find witnesses that nobody else could find. He could track down evidence that nobody else could locate. But of all of his traits, the one that I've been told about that may last as his greatest legend is his ability to know the location of literally every diner in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. More importantly, those who have accompanied him throughout the region report that no matter how obscure the diner, it always seemed that Steve knew somebody working or eating inside. There are two cases that deserve special mention. In the early morning hours of April 17, 2005, Detective James Allen of the Providence Police was fatally wounded when a suspect he was interviewing wrestled his service weapon from him and shot him before jumping out of a third-floor window and fleeing the police station. Captured blocks away shortly after the murder, the suspect unsuccessfully relied upon the defense of insanity at trial, was convicted and sentenced to life without parole. Detective Springer spent countless days assembling the case against that individual, working hand in hand with the prosecution team, and in particular, locating and managing dozens of witnesses. Though many cases he worked on throughout his career were as complex, none was more important. Finally, Detective Springer worked with Assistant Attorney General Jim Baum and Detective Brian Dyer of the Providence Police to solve the long unsolved June 8, 1978 murder of Bobby Oliveira, which occurred in the former Roger Williams projects in South Providence, a murder he had responded to decades earlier. The investigation was reinitiated in April 2015 when Patricia Santos, the former fiancée of the victim, approached the Providence Police. As a result of the investigation, a grand jury investigation was initiated, which focused upon the killer. The killer's death, prior to the return of an indictment, prevented the grand jury from concluding its investigation. But Ms. Santos and those who worked on the case could all say that in this case, justice had once again been done with the reopening of a decades-old cold case. In sum, over the course of his nearly 50 years of law enforcement, Steve Springer epitomized the professionalism, dedication, courage, and integrity of the profession. While the ranks of the Hall of Fame are justifiably filled by those who have risen to become chiefs, judges, or directors, it is important to recognize the talents of one like Detective Springer, who tirelessly worked on the streets for his entire career, and who in that process served literally as the face of law enforcement to all those he encountered. In the words of retired Detective Sergeant Vin Manzanilla, who's here tonight with Steve, Steve Springer is, quote, the best detective to have ever worked at the Providence Police Department that I can remember. It's my privilege and my honor to introduce Detective Steve Springer.
Good evening, all. And wow, this is quite an honor. Certainly an honor. And it's certainly the pinnacle of my career. As they said, as Jerry said, I started in 1968. And I have to thank Jerry also for nominating me, and also the committee for selecting me for this great honor. I started on the job in '68. And we entered the academy in November 18th of 1968. And there's someone in this room that remembers that date, Dan Driscoll. We became steadfast friends at that point, best friends, lifelong friends. And I was very privileged to have him as my partner in detectives for quite a few years. When I was in patrol, I worked South Providence. South Providence was a community. It was a community with mixed ethnic groups. They were hardworking. They went to work. Most of them didn't make a lot of money, but they were good people, and they were easy to work with. However, there was part of that community that had an element of criminals, a small element. And back in '68, it was considerably small. So it made it kind of easy for us as police officers to track these individuals. And we kept eyes on them. We checked, saw where they operated out of. We recorded their vehicles, and we knew their habits. And we made a lot of arrests. I made a lot of arrests, the others made a lot of arrests. And we all backed each other up. I was not alone. No matter what I did out there, I was assisted by the other officers, and the officers were excellent officers. As I would suggest, all your officers on Providence Police Department are excellent officers. Again, they have a tough job. They have a lot tougher job than I or Danny had when we came on. The high-risk stops, whatever, increased probably tenfold. And it's a danger out there. And these police officers obviously have to watch out for each other. They have to be concerned. And certainly, on these stops, they're taking their lives into their own hands. Sometimes I say it's a terrible situation, but they back each other up because they're good police officers. And in my opinion, Providence Police, I would suggest it's the finest police department in Rhode Island. And I don't want to insult any other police officers here. Obviously I work for Providence, and but I can tell you we had a good force out there. I then entered into Detective Division, 74. And again, I worked the South Providence area. When I was selected to go into the first squad, I was elated. I was happy. That's where I wanted to be. And I remained there for the rest of my career in detectives. And as Jerry said, that there was an individual that mentioned me to Jerry, and that was the Detective Sergeant, retired, Vincent Manzanilla. Well, I actually had a lot of notes earlier that I'm not going into, but in my notes, I was going to tell you that probably the finest investigator that I worked for and with was Detective Sergeant Vincent Manzanilla. And again, I worked in the first squad in the Detective Division, which was South Providence, and we thought, well, as most people, we thought we had the best squad in the room. Whether or not we did, debatable. But I can tell you this, when the proverbial shit hit the fan, we all helped each other out. It was never one person doing it all. I had a great career, but I owe it to so many other police officers, uniform, detectives. They made me look good. And that being said, at a point, I left. I had to leave. It was a mandatory age requirement. And probably about 4 months short of it, I got a call from the Attorney General's office, Paul Daly. And Paul Daly asked me if I would join the Attorney General's office. Again, I was elated. I was staying in law enforcement, something I liked to do, investigations, stay in investigations. But I had a surprise when I went into the AG's office. And the surprise was, I learned everyone in that office works hard, extremely hard. They all help each other. I have to praise the attorneys. I have to praise both the prosecutors and the civil attorneys for the job they do. It's an outstanding job, but along with that, they do it with the support of the support staff. And when I say support staff, I'm referring to everyone in the building with the exception of the attorneys. They all work together. They all work hard. And I've been the recipient of the assistance from the support staff for 14 years. And I can't tell you how appreciative I am of what they've done for me. I had a lot of rewards while I was in the Attorney General's office. Rewarding instances. But probably the greatest reward was meeting a beautiful, intelligent caring woman, Ginny McGinn. And as many of you know, we got married on 11/11/11. And along with my loving wife, I also was inducted to a family, and that's the McGinn family. And I couldn't have been inducted into a better family. The McGinn family has an Irish heritage. I'm an Englishman. But I can tell you, they're terrific people. Peter McGinn is a well-respected attorney in the state. His wife, Ginny, my mother-in-law, and his sister, and Ginny's sister, Chris, have been wonderful to me. That being said, before I depart, I'd like to address a fellow inductee, and that's Colonel Hugh Clements. You've always been an outstanding police officer, a true gentleman. And the citizens of Providence and also the Providence Police Department are so fortunate to have you as their chief, and I mean that. Right? In closing, may I again thank all of tonight's attendees for taking the time to celebrate this event with myself and the other inductees. And to my law enforcement friends out in the audience, please, please be safe. Thank you.
Jerry mentioned that Steve's a cop's cop. I can tell you in 1984, when I went on the job, everybody knew who Steve Springer was, and we all wanted to be him. And but nobody is Steve Springer. He is one of a kind, and that's a compliment, absolutely a compliment. And the work he did in the office was stellar, and he was like a hound dog. He could find those witnesses, but I will say, Steve, one person besides Ginny, obviously, misses you most in that office, and that's Jim Baum. He's lost without you. So, be that as it may, for our next introduction, I'm going to call up the president of the Rhode Island Chiefs of Police, the chief of the Central Falls Police Department, James Mendonca. Chief.
Boxer at that time, so as he got better, the press started to kind of hone in on the details, and pretty soon the secret was going to be out. And so I think that was the point where he decided to pick a different career, and luckily for us, he chose law enforcement. I know him as a man of high integrity, and also someone. When I was listening to the other accolades here tonight, I heard echoes of the description that I would make of him. Someone who had high ethical character, someone who was a very hard worker, someone who worked really closely with the people that he served. And I believe that that's the type of person he was, and I think if he were here today, he would be well pleased. So thank you to all of you who made this possible, and thanks also to my family for being here as well. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Michael. It's nice to have your grandfather honored here for all of his accomplishments in Central Falls. Little known fact, back in those days, CF actually produced a lot of boxing champions throughout New England, one of whom actually was my godfather, so I never had that skill. Anyway, on to our next inductee. I was on schedule to do this, but I thought it more proper for someone else to do it, someone who knew the next inductee for decades. So right now I introduce to you retired Judge Edward Clifton.
Good evening. General Kilmartin just asked me moments ago if I would be willing to introduce the Judge Stone and Alice Deere, who will accept the award on his behalf. I knew Walter for many, many years, and I knew him in many different capacities. I knew him as the last capacity as a colleague. We were associate justices on the Rhode Island Superior Court. Before that, I knew Walter as a partner. We were law partners. We started our practice of law back in 1977, 78, thereabouts. He and my late brother, Bill, we started our law firm. And I'm proud to say, and very proud to say that I knew Walter as a friend. I met Walter in 1973. He and my brother were then attending law school at different law schools, and they met at a conference, and they became friends, and as true to the word, they became legendary friends. And based on their meeting, I became friendly with Walter. And Walter, from the very moment I met him, was an inspirational person. Walter was, as many of you know, and as Jack is still here, he will give the proud Marine salute. Walter was a combat veteran in Vietnam. He was a Marine, and he lived as a Marine, and he honorably died as a Marine. Thank you, Jack. But Walter, like so many of the inductees in tonight's Hall of Fame, served in many different capacities in the criminal justice sphere. Walter entered the criminal justice sphere as a legal services lawyer. He worked for Rhode Island Legal Services. He thereafter went into the Rhode Island Public Defender's Office. He was an assistant public defender. Then he went into the Attorney General's office, and he rose to the ranks of an assistant attorney general. He was the first assistant attorney general, and perhaps the only assistant attorney general in the state of Rhode Island of color. Walter remained in the attorney general's office for a number of years. He indicted a number of individuals, prosecuted a number of individuals, and as I stated earlier, thereafter he, my brother Bill, and myself, we joined the law practice. We started a law practice. Walter continued to practice many aspects of law, including criminal defense work. When Walter joined the Superior Court, it was one of the most proudest moments of his life. It was something that he was well suited for. It was something that he did quite honorably. He was a challenging individual to work with. I know that from experience. He was a challenging. We have Wendy Olivo, who was his court reporter, who was here tonight. She was his court reporter. And I'm sure, I hope that she's burned most of the notes that were taken during his many trials as she presided with him. But Walter, I'm sure, was very proud at this moment to be inducted into such an honorable institution. So at this moment in time, I'd like to introduce his dear friend and companion, Alice Deere. Alice.
Good evening. I'd like to first thank the General and the Board of Trustees of the Hall of Fame for selecting Walter. He would have been very proud to stand here among you, the fellow inductees. I congratulate you all. And for those of you who do know Walter, and I know there are many in the room who have worked with him or served with him over the years, you know, and from Ed's comments, he was a character. But he would have been so proud to be among all of you as inductees. He loved the criminal justice system. As Ed said, he was very proud of being a judge. But when I met him, he was a corporate lawyer. And He continued to have compassion for victims, and so I know that, and he respected the police, and so I know he would have been very honored to be among the inductees in the room. So I thank you all for being here and welcoming me to stand here and accept this honor for him. His son, Hunter Stone Gardner, would have been here and in fact came to Warwick from New York to accept the award with his mother and his grandmother, but earlier today his grandmother fell ill, so they had to make the decision to go home. But I would have wanted him to hear your remarks, Ed, because he never really understood the depth of his father's career and work and how respected he is and was in the criminal justice system. So I'll look forward to sharing with him all the details of this awesome evening. This has really been a wonderful occasion, and I'm glad to be a part of it. I have a feeling that Walter's spirit is moving here among us, and so if any of the inductees feel a little tap on their back or a pat on their back, I'm sure that Walter's spirit is here with you. Don't be alarmed. I thank you again. Have a good evening.
If you can bear with me for about 2 minutes, we will wrap this up. But first of all, Your Honor, thank you for pinch hitting. You know, some of you might have heard, wow, that's not fair, he asked him at the last minute, but clearly, coming from the heart of Judge Clifton, the story of Walter Stone far exceeds anything I could do out of a book. But I will tell you one thing. The first time I got to meet and spend a lot of time with Judge Stone was actually at the 2008 Democratic Convention when Barack Obama was getting nominated for his first term as President of the United States. And Alice, I think you used the word character. All I'll say is we get to be characters together, and I'm going to leave it at that. But it was most enjoyable, and not in no small part due to Judge Stone. There's one other Hall of Famer I'm going to introduce. And this Hall of Famer, though, is going to be a representative of all of you who are here as spouses and friends and family who all of these Hall of Famers, past, present, and future, could not do their jobs. The people who sacrifice behind the scenes, who support and love that individual in their mission to make the justice system in Rhode Island better. So as a representative of that class, I'm going to introduce to you my Hall of Famer, Christine Kilmartin. She hates when I do that, but it's well deserved. I understand Colonel Doherty requests to come up for a moment, so Colonel.
Thank you, General. I'll be brief, ladies and gentlemen, because we're wrapping up here. But before we end tonight's festivities, I'd like to say a few words on behalf of the Criminal Justice Hall of Fame Board of Trustees, and congratulations once again to the inductees. The creation of the Rhode Island Criminal Justice Hall of Fame did not happen by chance. It was the vision of one person, Attorney General Peter Kilmartin. In 2011, for his first year as Attorney General, he recognized that while different segments of the criminal justice system honored their own, police honoring police, lawyers honoring lawyers, there was no one singular organization that was inclusive in the vast network of professionals that make up the entire criminal justice system. And he set out to change that with the Rhode Island Criminal Justice Hall of Fame. No one knew at that point what to expect, whether it would be embraced, would people think it was political, would people show up at the induction ceremony. So quickly, those concerns were quickly put to rest, as the first induction ceremony here was a rousing success and has only grown in attendance and prestige in every year. As a past inductee, I know firsthand how much it means to be recognized for this distinguished honor. As a Board of Trustees, I know how hard your staff has worked. So thank you, General, for your vision, your passion for the criminal justice system, and for giving all of us a chance to celebrate the very best amongst us. And so on behalf of the Board of Trustees, it's my honor to present this plaque in appreciation to you, Attorney General Kilmartin, for establishing the Rhode Island Criminal Justice Hall of Fame. General.
So I will tell you the best part of that. I know to keep the speech short so you folks can get out of here. But honestly, I do want to thank the board for their hard work. They make it happen, but really, I'm going to end it where I started it. It's the inspiration of all of you that made the creation of this so easy. So thank you for inspiring folks, young and old, to have confidence in the justice system, and let's keep that effort moving forward as we move Rhode Island forward. And I do need to thank, too, obviously, the folks who do make it happen. As I acknowledged earlier, the Board of Directors. For my office, Amy Kemp, who just, I can't tell you, if anybody in the press notices less press releases lately, she's done a fantastic job. Assisted by my left brain, Monica Horan, Jerry's left brain, Teresa Letourneau, Donna Corwin, Amy's assistant, and I believe Ernie Carlucci, our chief of staff, who I saw, he's in the back here. Thank all of you for really making the evening enjoyable for everyone who is in attendance, and that keeps the crowds growing. And lastly, I want to thank all of our sponsors. They're mentioned in our program. Without that, we could not fund this, that along with the tickets that you all purchased. So thank you. Have a good night. Be safe. God bless you. God bless the state of Rhode Island.